Excellent. Welcome, everybody. This is Andrew Celentano. You know me as Hillary's husband. I also am the interviewer for the Composer's Corner, and I'm very happy to have Joe Mulholland with me tonight. Hillary is actually indisposed, and she's just had a very rough day and needs to relax a little bit. And I told her I'd pick up the ball of the slack tonight and do this. So let's hope I can do a good job at it. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the online programming of the Gynt Center. And I'm going to let people into as they arrive. So a little bit about the Gynt Center. Come to our news page, gyntcenter.org/news anytime. I think you'll find there's always a lot of great happenings. This is just one of many, many things they have during the month. In fact, I just signed up for a wonderful science project coming up, the Wilson Science Series. So I think that'd be a lot of fun. After this, you may be asked to participate in a survey. So please do participate. We'd love to get your feedback. We always look forward to hearing what people think. And if you have some new ideas or things you like or don't like, we'd love to hear that as well. Moving on to the next page. There is one more thing this month that I'm involved in, and that is Flying with Phil. Phil Mandel is actually a friend of mine I met many years ago at MIT, who is quite an accomplished individual in many respects, but he also happens to fly private planes. And we thought we'd love to hear how one goes about flying a private plane. And he will tell you, the kinds of things it takes to learn how to fly, the techniques that you use as you fly. He talks about some of the maneuvers that they have to do to be able to get certified to be a flyer. And he'll actually take you on some training videos that he has online. And at your leisure, you can go and look at those later. I just had a dry run with him, if you will, earlier today, and was just wonderfully impressed by the work he's done and what he put together for us. So I think you're going to have a lot of fun with that. Here are some of the other things coming up. I think you'll find these really quite amazing. I'll be seeing you at the Divina Theater on Tuesday, the October 5th, the Walking Winchester series with Cirrus Dallin, Art Museum, the Spooktacular Fall Decorating Tips with Stacy Martin. She's an amazing designer who just always has a wonderful show for us. So we're really glad to have her again. Leona Chung, a classic vocal recital. And we realized last time that happened, we didn't have the best presentation. So we're going to be much better rehearsed now in terms of making sure there are no glitches in the process. So it should be a much better presentation than there was last time. Another virtual one called Pediments, Pilasters, and Porticos, Ancient Architecture of Modern Winchester by John McConnell on October 19th. And the Dancers Dialogue. We have a very talented woman. In fact, Pam and I and Hillary and Joe are going to go out tomorrow night to celebrate my birthday, which is actually today. So this is a special day for me. And Pam is going to have a guest, Lisa Hahn, on Tuesday, October 26th. So we have a full doc in front of us for the month of October. I hope you join. And these are just the ones that Hillary is responsible for. There are other programs as well. So I encourage you to take a look online and be part of that. We'd really be glad to see you there. Bear with me for 1 second. I'm admitting some people here. Okay. So this event is made possible by a generous grant from the Cummings Foundation. I remember talking to Mr. Cummings years ago when he was still waiting for this to get to $1 billion before he turned it into a foundation. And he got there some years ago, and they parcel out 100,000 grants to people. And they, in fact, recently, the Jenks Foundation has won a 10-year grant with these folks. So very happy to be part of this and appreciate their support. And just very glad that we're doing this. So thank you to the Jenks Center. Thank you to the Cummings Foundation. And now, let me also thank the people that were involved in this. So here are some of the people we'd like to thank. The director, Phil Betts, Maria Ruttman, the WSA manager, Nick Asaro, the facilities manager, Vicky Dragas, the administrative secretary, Kathleen Schneller, the administrative coordinator, Sue Clark, transportation coordinator, Patty Santos, senior clerk, Suzanne Norton, social worker, Colleen Wages, registered nurse. Thank you so much for this. We're now going to bring in and introduce Composer's Corner with Joe Mulholland. I have seen Joe through many occasions. One is because he happens to be the husband of Pam, who Hillary knows through dance. And but also Joe had performed regularly with his band at the top of the hub for many, many years. Some of you may have seen him there. It was always fun to go and visit and see that. Professor at Berklee College of Music, chair of the Harmony Department for 10 years. Joe's an accomplished pianist, recording artist, composer, and a teacher, and he loves teaching. He's gone back to that, thinks it's just wonderful, and I'm sure he's got a lot of students that are very lucky to have him as a teacher. He's released 5 CDs of original music written for trio, quartet, and sextet. He's composed numerous electronic scores for Boston area dance companies, including a tango suite commissioned by the Northeast Youth Ballet. As music director for the Windhover Center for Performance Arts, he's composed and recorded sound design and songs for original productions of Gynt and Dogtown Common. He's also written a book of jazz harmony, which, of course, if you'd like to get, you can buy more than happy to set you up with that. Sheet music on all the things he's composed. He's going to actually introduce 4 or 5 new pieces tonight. We did an interview last time, and I will, if anyone's interested, please send a note off to Hillary. I'd be glad to send you the link to that as well. And at some point, this will be posted for people that aren't able to catch tonight. And finally, if you'd like to buy some CDs from Joe, we can talk about that later in the program. I'll post online how you can get in touch with him and do that. You know, you can get a lot of the music these days online from Apple Music and YouTube, but the only way composers really get serious money is if you buy their CDs directly from them. So I would encourage you to please, sponsor the composers out in this world and help them with the money they so dearly deserve, because it takes a lot of hours to compose a piece and produce it and get it out there. And the kind of money they pay on Apple or some of these CD Baby is just minuscule. It's heart-wrenching how little composers get paid for their wonderful work. So anyway, at this point, let me admit a few more people here, and then let me turn the screen over. I'm going to get out of this now and get out of sharing and turn this over and introduce Joe Mulholland. So Joe.
Andrew.
Put you on the big screen, spotlight for everyone. Here he is, Joe, with his big piano behind him.
Wow.
What chord was that, students?
That's right there. Just so you know. It's good to see a number of familiar names in the list of people who are here. I see friends and students. It's great to see you. So for everybody who I've worked with recently, great to see you. Thanks for coming tonight. I really appreciate it.
So Joe, let's talk a little bit about your background. Were you raised by a family of musicians by any chance, or was there music in the family?
I would say not at all. I was certainly not raised by a family of musicians. There was a current of music in the family. My grandmother, my mother's mother, played strictly by ear. She was a sort of a slightly gifted, popular pianist. And would regale me with stories of her playing for parties in Chicago. And my grandmother would sit down at the upright piano down in the basement when they would have people over, and they'd be drinking beer and dancing and singing, because in the 30s and 40s, that's what people did. Everyone sang and played and danced. So she was able to learn popular songs off the radio by ear. My grandmother was just had a great feel for music. And I remember hearing her play several times when I was younger. We'd be in Chicago for Christmas, and I would hear her play, and the room would just light up. And that always really struck me. And I just had a feeling that I could sort of do that. They had a little upright piano in their apartment, and I would play it a little bit. And my grandmother actually bought us our first piano. When she found out I was interested in learning how to play piano, I had a few lessons with a neighbor. And when it became clear that I really liked it, she bought us a little upright piano, and that was kind of the beginning of that. So I kind of got the gift of music from my grandmother, I think. But nobody else in my parents' family really played at all. My father, he liked music, but he couldn't sing, he couldn't play, never tried. And my mom played a little bit of piano. She had the usual run of childhood piano lessons, but really a musician. Among my siblings, I'm the oldest of 6. I have one sister who played flute fairly well in high school, but just didn't pursue it. My youngest brother played drums in college and high school, and still plays, as an amateur. And I have a sister. My youngest sister has a very nice voice, beautiful soprano voice, and was not a bad pianist either. But none of them pursued it professionally. So it was really kind of just me.
Yeah. Do you remember how old you were when you first touched the piano?
I do. It was at a neighbor's house. I'll tell you a funny story. We had a fireplace in our house, brick fireplace. And I remember being 7 or 8 years old, and my parents had some music on it was probably, an old pop tune, the Poor People of Paris. It was called. It was a hit in
Yeah,
like 1960.
sure.
And I remember it was on the radio one Sunday morning when my mom was making brunch, and I was kind of hitting the notes on the bricks as if they were piano keys. And so that was
Oh,
my first experience with a quasi keyboard. And one of our neighbors had a piano, and I went over there and played that a little bit and just tried to do stuff on it. So
mhm.
I sort of remember that, yeah.
So tell us about your first piano teacher.
My first piano teacher was a wonderful man. He lived right in our neighborhood. I
Hmm.
through a couple of backyards and get to his place. His name was Earl Brown,
Hmm.
Dr. Brown, and he was blind,
Mm.
completely blind, and taught popular and jazz piano in the
Oh,
50s and 60s. Also played some classical stuff and
mm,
composed a little bit of his own music. And he was a wonderful teacher. He had a piano, he had a home organ in his little teaching studio, and he
mm.
had a ham radio set up in the attic.
Oh,
Couple times he brought me up there and we were able to send ham radio messages to my grandparents. And to me, as an 8-year old boy in the Sputnik era, that
hmm.
could be in this like nice old gentleman who smoked a pipe and taught me piano. He brought me up to his little radio transmission room, and we were talking to people in Chicago and Oklahoma on the ham radio.
Wow,
It was like,
wow.
oh man,
Yeah.
next stop Mars. This was great. He was a wonderful fellow, very kind, very just very encouraging.
Mm.
Played beautifully. My parents brought me to hear him play one time at a concert.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, he had a heart attack and died when I was 10 and a half years.
Oh boy. Oh boy.
First experience with death.
Yeah. Oh my God. And how long did you study with him?
A couple or 3 years.
Wow.
It was
Now,
really nice. I owe a lot to him.
yeah. Now a doctor. He should be a doctor of music, like PhD. Is that what that was?
I wouldn't really know because I didn't know what that meant back then.
No.
Called him
So,
Dr. Brown. So presumably he was a PhD. Yeah.
and a blind pianist teacher. That's amazing to me. Now I have to admit, I wasn't that familiar with blind people playing until. I mean, obviously there's some famous blind people that have played. Uh, what's that famous Stevie Wonder, for example? But it wasn't until recently I met a blind guy at a competition, a piano competition, who came in second, and he played some of the most complex pieces, jumping around the piano, and it was amazing that he could hit the keys so accurately. And I watched him, and one of the things I noticed is that he was actually very good at also tactically knowing where his hands were. And it occurred to me that even though we're sighted, there's no reason why we can't also tactically have cues of the piano. And I'm finding I've learned something from him in terms of being able to, hit the keys more accurately by knowing, wrapping my hand around the edge of a black key or whatever, and just making sure I'm hitting the right note. So
Yep.
there's definitely lessons to be learned from that. But starting out with a blind teacher, that must have given you an interesting perspective, um, right
Did.
out of the gate.
Reading wasn't too good, and I'm saying that advisedly. I'm not really joking, but
Yeah,
I didn't really learn how to read very well.
yeah.
And to this day, I'm not a great reader. I'm not blaming that on anything.
No, yeah, sure.
It's a particular kind of cognitive skill. Some people are better at it than others. I'm not
Yes.
a great reader.
Yeah.
But but yeah, I mean, often when I'm playing jazz, I have my eyes closed, and one of my warm up exercises is to do. Uh, I'll play octaves in the left or the right hand, and I'll just go from. I'm not sitting down at my piano. I'm not warmed
Yeah.
up.
Sure, sure.
Practice, all the way down to 2 octave leaps,
Really?
and you can
Blind with your eyes closed. That's pretty amazing. Yeah.
get very very accurate with that. It's not that hard.
Huh.
I remember him showing me how to play stride piano.
Yes.
You know, and he said after a while you'll just know where it is. You'll just feel it. You don't have to look.
Well,
Concentrate on the right hand.
yes.
There's that. And famously, Art Tatum, the supreme technician of jazz piano,
Hmm.
completely blind from the time he was like 4 years old, and he did things that were astonishing at the
Yeah.
keyboard.
Yeah.
Completely blind.
Amazing.
And as accurate, pristine technique.
Hmm.
No, it was just so. Between him and Stevie Wonder, and I'm sure there are plenty of blind musicians out there. There have been, I'd had colleagues in the Boston area, popular music world, who were blind, and
Mm.
it was not an issue.
And Art Tatum, I guarantee if you go to YouTube and type in Art Tatum, you'll find all kinds of wonderful renderings of his playing. Just amazing, just amazing.
Incredible pianist.
So now
Yeah.
let's talk about your wonderful playing. So when did you know that you wanted to be, your career would be in music? Was there a seminal moment in your life where that you just knew? How did that happen for you? Because that's a big decision to decide to go into music.
It was an evolving thing. As I said, I'm the oldest of six.
Mm.
Fairly conservative Irish Catholic family in the 50s and 60s. My dad was a businessman. My mom was a homemaker. And and we lived in the suburbs of New Jersey. The prevailing thing was like, well, go to college,
Mm-hmm.
be beautiful, everything will be fine. Um, and we had no role models for being a professional musician. We didn't know anyone who did that. All
Right.
my parents' friends, absolutely, it was homogeneous. Every single adult man put on a suit and went to an office in the morning.
Mm.
We didn't know a single working musician.
Right.
Um, so, like where do you start? I don't even know. And in the '60s, when I was becoming a teenager and a little older, late '60s, music was, well, at that point, I wanted to be John Lennon, frankly,
Mhm.
or
Right.
something
Right. Couldn't we all? Sure.
like that. And how do you become an English guy or a black guy from the South? Like, you just can't do that.
Yeah.
I didn't know anybody who would ever become a working musician. So,
Oh.
you know, I went to a traditional high school and I got into Williams College and went to Williams College for 4 years. And when I was there, I did everything I could do with music, but it was a small liberal arts college with not a real music program, certainly not a performance program. I hardly knew such a thing existed. And at that time, it was still, if you went to college for music, it was pretty much classical music. And I
Yeah.
wasn't ready for that. I wasn't interested in that. I wanted
Right.
to do jazz and popular music. So I went to Williams and did everything I could with music. I played pit piano in the theater. I
Mm.
sang choral society. I had a little rock and roll band with my friends.
Yeah.
Winter, January term projects, 3 out of the 4 years in music. And so I guess the defining moment to your question, Andrew, was I was 21 and I graduated from college and I had nothing, no options. I said, I just want to be a musician.
Mm.
And I guess I'm going to like move to some place where I can try to do that. So I moved to Boston because New York was too scary.
Mm-hmm.
And moved to Boston and worked in a drugstore and took piano lessons and
Mm.
starved and was miserable for quite a long time,
Wow.
frankly.
Wow.
Tried to get it together. It took a long time.
Yeah.
It was not a beautiful thing. I arrived in Boston with not much equipment, no skills, no theoretical or ear training to speak of. Some talent, some things that I'd picked up from my piano lessons in high school and a couple of years of college. I would go home in the summer and take lessons from a local guy who was good.
Mm-hmm.
But I was like grossly underprepared. I should have been 21 and like hitting the road with the band.
Yeah.
If I'd gone to Berklee, that's what I would have been doing, but it didn't work out that way. So, you know,
It was a rough road, but you were definitely committed and dedicated, and you've come a long way. And actually, it's an amazing what you've accomplished, and just beautiful music. And
thank
I
you.
look forward to hearing some of it now. What would you like to start with? I know, in the last interview you had about 4 or 5 beautiful pieces, and I
Thank-
wanted to encourage you to play them again. You said, "No, I got new music now. Let's move on." So, what would you like to play first for us tonight?
Well, I thought I'd start out with something that's relatively simple and it's also brand new.
Yeah.
Um, and this is a piece a lot of my work kind of flows out of my teaching because it gets me thinking conceptually about what's possible in music.
Mm.
Um, and I feel like I should be writing for my students to show them to kind of model the writing process. And
Mm.
so in my jazz composition course that I developed and teach for the Berklee Online School, one of the units in that 12-week class is on odd meters, 5/4, 7/4, things like that. We do a kind of a light treatment of that. So I hadn't written anything in 5/4 for a while, and I decided it's time to write another 5/4 song. So I
Excellent.
decided to to do that, and I'm going to share my screen here.
Hmm.
So for those of you who can read lead sheets, while I play this for you, can everybody see that screen? This is the title of the tune.
Yeah,
I'm just fiving around.
I love it.
5/4. Too much into that title, but just fiving around, people. Um, and I'm also, it was kind of like an exercise. I was warming up one day and I was kind of playing, and I figured, Dave Brubeck shouldn't be the only person to have a famous tune in 5/4. So I was playing around with simple decorated arpeggios in F minor. So this is what I came up with. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Sorry. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Very nice. Very nice.
So that's, the melody. This is a very standard song form. It's an AABA song form,
Yeah.
in true American songbook form, with a sort of a minor key bebop approach. And there are many, many tunes in this in this style.
I just love this tune because it sounds like something that it's so natural, and somehow it just, I don't know, there's something about it that just makes it sound like it's how could I say this? It's
Sounds like it's always been there, right?
yeah, kind of, yeah. In fact, it reminds me of the story of the famous story of Paul McCartney when he wrote Yesterday. He had a similar feeling where it felt like it was there already, and he was going around saying, "Have you heard this before? Have you heard this before?" And because it just felt so right that I think he felt it's already in the universe. I just I didn't reinvent it, but I think this is the case again, where this is something that it feels like it's always been there, but it's not. I mean, this is an original piece.
Yeah,
It just feels right. It just there's something about this just makes sense. I'm not quite sure how to say that, but it's just great. I can see this definitely being a big hit.
thank you. Yeah, I
Yeah.
felt I didn't write it. I just uncovered it.
Mm-hmm.
It was there. I mean, I did some thinking about this piece. I mean, I had a couple concepts floating in my mind. I'd been talking to my students about what we call sequence, the idea of taking a musical idea and moving it around up and down. So the bridge is all about sequence. You know, da 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 do da 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 do da 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 do da 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 da. But what makes it fun in the key in the meter of 5/4 is this little figure here. Let's do this. This little figure, da 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 da.
Yeah.
2-beat figure, of course, right?
Sure.
So here's the same thing, more or less. And oh, now this figure is going across the bar line. So you're writing something. It sounds like it's in 4/4, but you're forcing it to live in the 5/4 meter.
Oh,
So
a hemiola kind of a experience, right? Yeah.
exactly. I love those. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1. So I was conscious of taking an idea and working it. You know,
Yeah.
ways we develop ideas is to take a very simple 2, 3, 4 note motif and just relentlessly develop it and make it do things. So that's what I was doing there. The A section, the beginning of the tune, is just like I said, a decorated arpeggio. But I know, Andrew, it just sounds like
Yeah.
it's something that I've heard before, but I don't think I have.
No, and what I like about it too is that this 5/4 beat by itself is already quite interesting.
Right.
But then in your B section, you move it around yet again into a whole nother set of rhythms with almost like a triplet feel, or it definitely moves in and out of the meter again. So it's almost like you have an offbeat effect inside an offbeat effect. It's like squared. So it's pretty cool. So.
Right.
By the way, just a side note, I love the way this thing prints out. Is this this is not handwritten, but it looks like it is, right? What program does this?
Oh, many of them do. This is called Finale.
It looks like it's written out almost by hand. It's a really nice effect.
Yeah, it's called Jazz Font.
Ah, very nice.
Things that are great about it, there are things that drive me insane.
Yeah.
The quarter rests are not particularly beautiful. And some of the letters are really ugly.
Oh no, really? Yeah, they're meant to be kind of fancy. I have to admit,
There's
I'm
nothing.
still fascinated by how you jazz people just have a lead sheet with a melody line, and then you fill in the chords. You know the chords, but then you got to figure out what the notes are and how to play the different voicings of them in real time. That is just a wonderful thing to behold. And coming from a classical background, I'm still very fascinated by that. I can do a little bit of it, but not to the extent that you guys do. Just amazing.
Oh,
So,
you do well. You do very well. Yeah, this is the interface between the written tradition and the oral tradition.
yeah.
You have to know the style. I mean,
Mhm.
metronome markings, of course. And I would normally, if I hand this off to people, I'll just say swing or bebop. And
Sure.
you from having played with people and having been told what to do, you know how to voice the chords. That's another whole discussion. So
Have you had this done by a band, a trio, or a quartet, or anything like that yet?
hey, this is brand new. I wrote this tune last week.
Oh my God. Okay, well, hurry up.
I've got a little collection of things. I'll probably be going into the recording studio again
Oh, that's great.
in a couple of months. This one would probably be trio, although it would be a great vehicle for alto sax, for example.
Yeah.
Right register for the alto sax, it would be clear but not strident in this register, and it'd be fun to do that way.
By
But
the way, you have some musicians in the audience tonight, I see already. And so just some of those who arrived late, if you want to get in touch and get the sheet music, Joe would be happy to send that to you. So
absolutely.
you can contact him after hours, or after we're done here today, we'll put this email in the chat room for you. Joe, this is great. Thank you so much for sharing this with us. Now, I know in some cases you actually do some of the orchestration, in your system, and you will design the other pieces and play it out in a MIDI format, and then have it actually performed, electronically. So is that the first thing you do before you actually give it to a trio? Do you kind of play it out first in your system?
Oh, that's a good question. Sometimes, but not always.
Okay.
I sometimes make a demo I've found in the past that the guys don't really want that. I
Oh, sure.
I say if I say to them, well, here's how I want to hear it, and they go like, I just want to, play it the way I want to play it, and
Exactly, exactly.
because I've gone to some lengths in the past to make what I consider clear demos of how I want it to sound, and
Mm.
they're just not interested. They said, give me the music, let's play it together, we'll figure it out. It's
Wow,
like,
wow.
okay, so, I routinely will make demos, but
Yeah.
a lot of the musicians I play with are not really interested in that. They want to figure it out for themselves.
Yeah,
So
and that's why you're bringing them in because they have all that
yeah,
musicality, I'm sure. What do you want to play for us next?
let's um, let's go in the other direction. This is a tune that I wrote just
Okay.
about a year ago.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very different kind of tune. It's a very different mood.
Mm-hmm.
I wrote it at a time that was really emotionally very interesting. Our daughter and our little grandson had been stuck here with us for 8 months because of COVID.
Oh,
They live in
wow.
Shanghai, and
Mm.
they got basically marooned here, which was wonderful in a way, but also very stressful because we didn't know when they'd ever get to go back.
Oh my God, yeah.
And they were separated from her husband, who was back home in Shanghai, and they were, staying in touch through FaceTime.
Mm.
So it was a very strange time. A lot of stuff went on last year. It was a crazy time. We were lucky we didn't lose anybody, but it was weird.
Yeah.
So, September of last year, they finally got to go back. That was an amazing and joyous occasion. And about a
Mm-hmm.
month later, it's fall. It's sort of an elegiac time of year anyway. You know, the summer is dissolving, and there's still a little bit of warmth to the air, and the late summer and early fall afternoon light is so intensely rich in gold.
Mm.
Um, and I was feeling, happy for them that they were back. So that's a golden thing for them. But also, I was feeling a little bereft because we'd had them with us for 8 months, which was beautiful. So this tune just kind of, this is one of the things that I didn't think about conceptually or plan at all. I was sitting at the piano one day and just feeling sort of meditative and slow, and this just kind of came out. And I kind
Mm-hmm.
of scratched it out as I was playing it. It was a kind of a spontaneous composition in a way.
And it's called Autumn Gold.
Autumn gold, yeah.
Autumn Gold. Okay.
So
Yeah. I love
yeah,
that.
so it's just it's sort of a lyric that really, there's no whenever I play it, it puts me back in that mood of early autumn and the year kind of at the tipping point between warm and
Mm.
cool.
Yeah, we're going through that now. In fact, I always find the September fall time a bittersweet time. And what the bitter part of this is, I think this, I took once a course in just one of these small short courses from a Harvard professor on music introduction, and one of the things they talked about is it's the small movement in notes that brings that sadness that you get this especially in the second staff, like those small little movements that about that just it's just very subtle and pensive, as opposed to these happy-go-lucky songs that jump all over the keyboard, but those small motions give you that kind of pensive nature to the music. It's just beautiful. So thank you for sharing that.
Thank
And
you.
I remember meeting your daughter when she was only maybe, I don't know, 15 or 14. And how old is she now? She's come a long way, right? She's got kids now. It's just, oh my God, just amazing. And time flies. So, Joe, is there anything about the structure of this chord wise that you want to discuss?
Yeah, well, you're
or anything like that?
Well, this one, it's very kind of harmonically free and evolving. Obviously, the bass line in the first 8 bars, the thing is, it kind of resolved itself into some 9-bar phrases, but the bass line is chromatic. So, how are you going to bass line? This is one way to do it. And instead of making this the 5 chord, which it would be in many traditional settings, I treated this like a target chord. So all these chords were essentially, in retrospect, they are leaning toward the A as being a final tonic.
Right.
Is not. It starts out sounding like a 1 chord, but 4, 1 minor, 5 of 5, flat 2, 1. So this whole thing has been like a descending, harmonically and functionally descending approach, like a long glide path to A major.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know that this is your target till you get there.
Yeah.
And from here, I drop down another fourth. So from D, this is a structural chord. A is a structural chord. We call that a plagal cadence, right? But it's not a plagal cadence because there's a lot of stuff in between. But I'm starting on the 4 chord to ending on 1.
Yeah.
And since I had done that, I figured, well, let's start the next section by doing that again. So we start the next section on E major. This one is a lot more kind of all over the map. I was using the melody. I'm doing some slightly reminiscent things of the first melodic phrase, not exactly a sequence, but some things that are borrowed from the first section. And I'm harmonizing them in a different way because I wanted it to sound different. But again, there's a fair amount of chromaticism in here too, right? G, F sharp, F, E, E flat. So the same way that the A section, the first 9 bars was chromatic, this is also chromatic, but not quite as regular.
Yeah.
I'm mimicking the bass motion of the first 9 bars, but harmonizing them in a completely different way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Inversions and whatnot. And the last 6-bar phrase is a double minor plagal cadence. 4 minor to G minor, G minor, D minor. I actually kind of stole that from a Brazilian musician, a guy named Gilberto Gil. Many people have done it, but I'm very familiar with the tune of his. If you don't know who Gilberto Gil is, just put his name in the chat.
How do you spell Gil?
That window. He's one of the
chat for us. Thank you.
Most.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
He's one of the most important of the what we call the MPB musicians. Fabulous singer and songwriter. Anyway, it's a little move that I just kind of borrowed from him, but many people do it as well.
Now, because this is a bittersweet piece, what are the points of light in it? I see the E chord. I see some very uplifting chords in here too. So how do you think about that?
Well, it's chiaroscuro, yeah. There's light and dark in it. It's just a mix.
Yeah.
The ending is very autumnal, right? So. But the other part, This is all pretty warm, but when you get
Mhm.
from the E to G minor, ooh, darkness, cold, cold
Yes.
breeze.
Yeah, exactly.
E
Oh
over,
my God.
again, B flat over F. We're going to triumph over this.
Mhm.
Oops, F minor, maybe not. C, yes, we will. Ooh, the wind is swirling around. So it's a real. That's
Yeah.
everyone feels it their own way.
Yeah, definitely. Excellent. By the way, I know you're probably not going to play this today, Beet Soup, but I just like to talk about the effect of the Beatles in the world in Beet Soup. Just the idea of the play on words. I love that.
Love to play that tune for you.
Oh, would you? Okay.
This is another brand new one. I wrote this about a month ago.
Mm-hmm.
Oops, Beet Soup. Maybe yeah, I wrote it at the beginning of August, I guess.
Hmm.
And the title doesn't really mean anything. I'm terrible at the title. but but this one, it started out very differently. I was just kind of like fiddling around with this idea. It's beautiful. I mean, I love that chord progression, but
Mhm.
it's a very hackneyed kind of
Right.
extremely common pop chord progression. Like people do it all the time. I was thinking, what else could I do with that? So in the last chord, instead of the G minor chord, I'm in C minor originally, and I love this progression. But I wanted to do something different, so I did that. C
Hmm.
minor, B flat, A minor.
Yeah.
And it just struck me as like it sounded kind of good in the moment.
Hmm.
So I played around with it and came up with this melody. I was playing it's just like, a nice little sketchy melody. I kind of liked it, but I was playing it as a ballad, right? And I built it out a little bit from there. And then I was playing it the next day and I said, yeah, it sounds kind of lugubrious. It's kind of like, another weepy ballad. Who the heck needs that?
Mm-hmm.
So I put a different beat to it, a completely different kind of beat.
Hmm.
Um, and I also changed the first chord. So now it's not C minor, B flat, A flat, A. Now it's F, B flat, A flat, A. And when I was writing this, I was thinking about contemporary jazz composers and what they're doing with the fresh things that they're doing with chord progressions. And I'm, a little behind the curve because I'm an older, sort of more traditional jazz guy, but I like what these guys are doing. I'm
Hmm.
trying to learn from it. So I'm thinking of people like Robert Glasper and Aaron Goldberg and Joshua Redman and many others
Hmm.
who are using not very complicated way. And I was trying to observe what these guys, the progressions sound familiar, but somehow different.
Hmm.
So I'm going to play this one because this one, a full recording, I think came out pretty well. This is a demo recording that I would play for anybody who I was going to try to teach the tune to. So here's Beet Soup. There's a little electronica at the beginning and a short introduction, and when the melody comes in, you'll hear it. Back to the top.
Wow. That's great.
So that's
Oh my God.
a whole different thing, right?
I cannot wait to hear you perform this live with a band. That's amazing. I could just see the big audience right now out there. Oh my God. This is going to be great. Very
I mean,
nice.
I'm a child of the 60s. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
rock and roll is a big part of where I'm coming from.
Mm-hmm.
I just love to like bam, 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 lay it down. Big influence on me was Miles Davis, one of my huge influences. And when Tony Williams joined his band, I'm kind of thinking of Tony Williams drumming for this
Mm-hmm.
tune. So, and this is the other thing about, well, for a long time, jazz writers and composers, Miles was a big innovator in this regard. He was not afraid to mix rock and funk beats with his music.
Mm-hmm.
Vilified for it in some quarters back in the 70s, but he knew what he wanted to do. He wanted to reach people. He wanted to try new things, and I grew up with this kind of feel and these grooves, and
Mm-hmm.
I want to do them in my music because I never got to be John Lennon.
Well, I can tell you, it sounded like you were having a lot of fun with it, and it certainly, when
I
we came back to the front end of it again, I just had goosebumps. It just felt great. That's
Cool.
great.
Thinking of rock and roll, I'm thinking of Miles, thinking of Chick Corea,
Mhm.
and that's all me. All the sounds you heard was just me and my
Oh,
synth rig at home. It's keyboard drums and keyboard bass parts and everything. So I
by the
love.
way, I know Chick Corea is no longer with us, but I went to see a concert of his a few years ago at the Boston Symphony Hall, and what was amazing was he actually tuned the audience. I don't know if you ever saw him do that. He give he gives like an interval da ba. He'd have the audience go da ba. He'd play with the audience, and he really got into the interaction. It was a lot of fun. Yeah, this is great.
Chick was one of the greats of all time. Such a
Mhm.
warm human being, such a lighthearted person, intense
Mm.
for sure musically.
Oh my God, yeah.
But he was all about communicating with the audience and having a good time, and
Mhm.
that's why I do it.
Yeah. By
Isn't
the way, did you ever study under Charlie Banakas?
I did happily
Yeah.
for a couple of years. I
Yeah.
it's a long story, but I was trying to study with him, and like three different times he'd call me up. Charlie legendarily had this long waiting list.
Yeah.
Um, and you get on the list and you wait for like 2 years.
Wow.
You hear this voice and go, "Hey, Joe, this is Charlie. You want to start? Ready to?" I'm like, "Oh man." The first time he called, it was like the week before I was about to enter New England Conservatory
Wow.
master's program. I said, "Oh man, I can't do it." He goes, "No problem. It's okay. Try it again some other time."
Mm.
You know, 6 years later, I'm back on the list. He calls me up. "Hey, Joe, want to start?" I go, "Oh, shoot, Charlie, I can't." I'm like, we had just bought the house in Melrose. My daughter was going to kindergarten. I'm starting at Berklee teaching the next week for the first time. I'm like, impossible. I have no time.
Mm. Wow.
I got to study with him when I was had been teaching at Berklee for a while. I did 2.5 years, and it was absolutely incredible. It was
Mm.
really inexplicable, indescribable rather.
I never met him, but I did get to meet his wife
Mar-
because a friend of mine is a neighbor of hers, and at the time I had just come out with my Wander in Dreamland album. I gave her about 10 copies of my sheet music, and she loved it. She said she wanted to give it to her students. I don't know if anything ever happened with it, but I was very touched by her gesture there. I thought that was very nice of her. So
Now she
anyway,
was a teacher of younger people, and Charlie was the jazz teacher to the stars.
mm,
Everybody from the most humble beginner to absolutely mega famous people
yeah,
studied with him. It was scary. There was nothing I could ask him that he didn't know about, and he knew
wow,
all about it.
yeah, yeah.
It, it made me regret that I hadn't spent 10 years with him.
Ah,
About to start doing another session with him. I took a couple of years off because I got too busy at Berklee. I was
mm,
about to start up again, and he died. He had
oh,
a
no,
brain tumor, and he
yeah,
died.
yeah.
It's one of my great regrets I didn't start earlier and spend more time. He was a genius.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm sure some of his genius paid off in you. So, what's your final song for the evening? Because we're down to about 7 minutes, but of course we can go a little bit over.
Well, we can go two different directions. There's one that I wrote, um, obviously, in May of 2020. This was, deep in the pandemic year.
Yeah.
And it was, uh, experimenting a lot with 12-tone composition in a
Oh,
jazz
nice.
text.
Hmm.
And this is a tune that I could play a brief recording. I won't play the whole solo and all that stuff, but I'll play it. And if you like, I can explain what I was doing. There are like
Sure.
12 tone rows that are in this tune in like 10 different ways.
Mm.
So there's that, or there's a tune I think we covered last time. This is an actual song that I wrote,
Hmm.
lyrics by a friend of mine.
Yeah.
We could do either one. It might be nice to end with this because the other ones we have to unpack it. It would take a while. Let's end with this.
Sure. Okay.
So this is a melody, another one similar to Autumn Gold. It's one of these melodies and progressions that just sort of came out organically.
Hmm.
And I was like, frantically writing it down as I wrote it, so to try to
Mm.
capture. And I love the way it came out. It's intuitive. It's sort of in A minor, but it moves around. It evolves. It's a through
Hmm.
composed piece that does not have a clear, strict structure of any kind, but I think it hangs together as a piece. And I was working with some vocalists, and this woman, Gail Leon Dar Wright, is a really just fun, passionate, musician lover. She's a Sondheim freak. She's
Mm.
an absolute freak for Stephen Sondheim. She knows everything about his music. So I said, Gail, I got this song. It needs words. Would you do something with this? And she said, sure, I'll try it. A week later, she came back to me with these just beautiful lyrics.
Wow.
So I'm going to play this for you. We had one of my colleagues at Berklee, David Thorne Scott. We had him record it. I
Hmm.
played piano, and David sang it. He did a beautiful job. And so this is it's called Tribute because, as you all know, probably if a famous Broadway composer or performer dies, they dim the lights on Broadway for an evening in the
Mm.
person. So it's just a song about that. So here you go. This is Tribute.
Hmm.
The lights dim on Broadway under warm but darkened skies. People stop and wipe their eyes. A sweet intermezzo tipping the hat. From this world to that, from this world to that, like voices through a window. What am I here for? Why am I heart sore? Breathe. I know that we are meant to wrestle God and make uneasy art. The moment's here. Look around, heed the sound we have found. Sacred ground. Friends disappear. I know it's a blessing just to breathe the air they breathe. Just to breathe the air they breathe. Come stand beneath this dim marquee and simply breathe their air with me. Please breathe.
Wow, Joe, that is amazing. And how timely talking about breathing at a time when that was before COVID, right? So,
It was very prescient. Written
mm-hmm.
and the line "Friends disappear." Oh my
Mm.
God!
Mm.
Just breathe. Every time I hear it, I have to control myself. It's
Mm.
She really wrote amazing lyrics for this.
Yeah, very nice, very talented.
Yeah, yeah. So that's, I like lots of different things, and I just, I don't know. When I'm writing, the inspiration might come from anywhere,
Mm.
go anywhere. So,
That
um,
is just magical, and it's just amazing to me how folks like you come up with these kinds of things. It transcends anything that can be calculated or engineered. It's truly inspired. I put on the chat room for people to reference. There's an interview you and I did about 9 months ago now, I think, some time ago. I put the link up there. It wasn't the complete interview. Unfortunately, we forgot to record it in the beginning, but it does have another couple of wonderful pieces as well,
mhm.
including Caress, which I absolutely love. It's just,
You.
oh, with that beautiful alto sax. Just,
Yeah.
oh my God, it's just a wonderful, but that should be the theme song for something. It's just amazing. It's just like a mystery novel, or it's just amazing. So I hope people get a chance to listen to that as well. We will post this at some point. We'll let people know.
Awesome.
Um, I also just put up there your two email addresses that they can reach you at. And now, is there a way they can buy your CDs online, or should they send them to you? Should they email you and then you can send it to them? How would you like to do that?
To write to me directly, they're not really available for sale commercially through a
Okay.
website or anything. But if you write to me directly, I'll use the good old post office, and I take Venmo, PayPal, checks, Krugerrands, whatever. Uh,
I love it. You had some wonderful comments here. Pamela said, "Beautiful. Makes me close
so,
my eyes and wonder with the playing." Um, Someone else said that was beautiful, Joe. Your love of music radiates throughout. So we had some wonderful comments from people.
thanks,
Um,
Karen. Thanks, Karen. Beautiful.
if there's anyone who wants to, at this point, unmute themselves and say anything or ask any questions, we can just kind of wrap it up. So I want to encourage you to do that. Otherwise, I want to wish you all a great night. And thank Joe again for preparing for this and putting together a wonderful performance for us tonight with this beautiful music.
My
Thank you
pleasure.
so much, Joe. That really is very sweet of you, and we really appreciate it.
And
Um,
and thank you so much to Andrew and Hillary for setting this up. But Andrew, I so enjoy just talking about music with you. We've had plenty of great conversations, and I just feel so comfortable talking with you, and because you understand and you know what to say and what to ask, it's a nice connection. So
thank
thanks
you.
for eliciting all this stuff. It's really
Well,
beautiful.
I'm truly just amazed and curious at the same time, and just love to explore, how you wonderful composers come up with this work, and how you go about approaching it. And it's just great to not only hear the music but hear the backstories on this. I find that fascinating. So
Mm.
thank you all again. Until next time, you'll see me next week at this time. I'm going to be interviewing Phil on flying. If anyone wants to learn how to fly a plane, I certainly have never thought I could do it. But Phil and I were classmates in college, and here he is flying planes, and I'm not. So I was fascinated by what he did. Who's also, by the way, a talented pianist. When I met him back in college, he was already playing the Chopin Aeolian Etude, which is, I'm sorry, not the Revolutionary Etude, which is a crazy left-hand piece. And I was so impressed with him way back then. But it's always great to be around people like Joe and like Phil that are so talented. So have a great night, folks. And it's my birthday, so celebrate for me. Have an extra drink or whatever. And
Everybody sing.
thank you, Joe. Have a great night, everyone.